Hey everybody, it's me, Laura. Yes, the egg-centric egg lady, and today we're going to go ahead and test Derwent's Lightfast and Inktense colored pencils on chicken eggshell. Now, I've got some Lightfast pencils here. This is a cherry red, and I'm putting this down on the shell. I will have to say, this is a little bit more of a wax-based pencil. I've gotten really, I've moved on to a lot of different things, and this pencil, I just love Derwent. I love Derwent. I love their Lightfast pencils, and I love their Inktense. I'm just going to say that right off the bat. This is a bigger barreled pencil, so for those of you who are used to your regular pencils, it might take a little bit to get used to. But I really love these pencils. They're a lot like, I don't want to say they're like Prismacolor. I've got my colorless blender here, and yes, I'm using a Prismacolor colorless blender. Derwent does make a colorless blender, but I don't like it as well as my Prismacolor one. That being said, it's still a really nice blender. I like it. It's just, I like my Prismacolor more. What can I say? Anyways, my Prismacolor blender is definitely a wax blender, and just like the Lightfast pencils here, they are more wax and oil based. They're not like Faber. Faber is really a very, very oil based pencil. It's great for detail and all that kind of thing, but my Derwent, when it comes to this series, if I was to pick out between Prismacolor and Derwent Lightfast colored pencils, I'd go with Derwent hands down every time. And the reason why I say that is because I'll eventually get into the ratings on this particular pencil, but I love it. Right now, yes, I'm doing my cherry red, and I really like the feel of these. The feel of these pencils were wonderful. So if you're wondering about investing in this particular kind of pencil, it works really good on eggshell as well. Now, I know a few of you are probably saying, well, she did not put her glove on. And that's right, I didn't. Very bad of me. Very, very bad. Yes, I should be wearing my glove handling my egg here. But these pencils are really nice to work with. You know, I've gotten used to Prismacolor, and they're very waxy. But the thing is, with some of these wax-based pencils, and this particular pencil is also wax-based, but it's not as waxy as Prisma. And, you know, it's so hard to describe. But I really like this particular set. It was a nice set to blend up. It was easy to work with. The pigment went down easy. Right here, I'm bringing in my blender, you know, from Derwent, and it works great too. Yes, I have a tendency to go towards my Prismacolor blender, but a lot of that is also cost. You know, I really wish the Prisma, or I should say the Derwent blenders, were a little bit more like individually sold or something like that, where it was a little bit cheaper. I find those to be cheaper. This one was just a little bit more expensive. So some people have complained about this blender being a little scratchy. I found that it works just as good as a Prismacolor blender. It's just my thing was the cost. Okay, so you could tell here I'm using my blender here to blend up my blue into my eggshell. Yes, I am definitely getting crumbs, and it doesn't matter which brand, because I've tried all of them pretty much. Maybe not all of them, but I've tried a good portion of different color pencils, and you always have to brush off the crumbs on eggshell. Now, the reason for this is the surface on which you are applying the colored pencil. Paper by its nature is more porous than eggshell, and what I mean by that is that the fiber from which paper is made allows for pigment to be pushed into its surface and allowing for that buildup of pigment, so you can get some really nice gradual blends on paper. Eggshell does not have that ability or that depth. And so I compensate in this regard with my blending style on eggshell, or how I treat it when I'm placing that colored pencil down. So like right here, I went back in and I'm making it darker where that dark blue is. I'm brushing it off, but I'm not just blending it in, because the blender, I will have to say, can take some of that pigment off. So if I really want it to be darker in that one area, that's how I compensate. Okay, so from here I'm going to go ahead and let you guys watch my hands talk a little bit, and then we'll move on to the next segment. All right, so here I'm bringing in my cherry red yet again, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend this up with my nice yellow. And I really wanted to see, again, this is swatching, okay? So this is swatching on eggshell. Unlike using paper where you would swatch out your colors on a piece of paper, we're swatching on eggshell. So I wanted to see what that blend would look like and get a really good, reasonable idea of what that is when I'm, putting it down. So I'm bringing in my yellow, and right here I'm going to be doing that blend. Again, I'm going to use my colorless blender to blend the two together. And this way then I get a truer sense as to what it's really going to look like when I do apply it to eggshell. People who swatch out their colors on their papers, it makes a difference. Depending upon what paper type you use, you really don't know what that color is. And some of these pencils, well, actually, Derwent's a great one for this. I look at their Lightfast ones, and especially the Inktense ones. You can't tell what kind of color it is unless you put it down on the paper. It's the same with eggshell. You don't know what kind of blend you're going to get until you apply it to that eggshell. So I do strongly suggest that when you go about if you get a new batch of colored pencils and you want to try it out on eggshell, you need to swatch first. Now, again, I'm also using here, and I mentioned this back on my Prismacolor segment, I cut the eggshell in half. I'm thinking I should have just had a whole egg instead. It's a little bit easier to deal with. But that being said, swatch out your colors. Find out what kind of blend you're going to get and what it's going to look like. Now, that being said, here's another little suggestion. I suggest keeping a few eggs around and, blow them out, whatever you need to do. But keep a few eggs around for testing. So in other words, when you get some pencils, what kind of blend you get, because there's so many different pencils out there. If you want to blend like, say, a blue with a red, and it might be varying shades or whatever, blend them together on the eggshell first, on a test egg. So this way then you know what kind of color blend you're going to get or what that's going to look like. I find that because there are, oh my goodness, some of these sets of pencils are huge, they're just ginormous. Even when I look at Faber, I'm like going, okay, you guys have a lot of pencil colors there to play with. To blend these up with different other colors, and maybe you say you blend more than like two, maybe you blend 3 or 4 colors. Well, to see what it really looks like, you really need to swatch it out. So get an egg, test it out, test your blending on there, because I can tell you when I've blended before, sometimes I was surprised by, oh, that doesn't look so good together. So make sure when you blend, you're going to really like the colors you're putting together. Okay, so I'm going to be completely honest here. My blue to red swatching, I did not like. I did not like how they came together here. And this is again goes to my prior point. You really need to go ahead and try out these colors on Eggshell first before you really want to put it down into a final project. It makes such a difference because this is like, oh, it looks like it's kind of mud in the middle. At least in my mind it does. I'm just like, I don't really like how those two colors kind of come together. This is not my favorite grouping. Maybe under a watercolor pencil it would look good, but with just plain colored pencil, maybe I should have tried a different red or a different blue. So just remember that. Swatch out your colors. It will pay for itself in the end. Okay, so we're getting into the Inktense area. Yes, 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 yes. I know, my favorite babies, right? But the thing is that I'm just going to be dealing with the colored pencil end of this. You really need to apply, because in my mind, this is a really, really dark red, okay? And when I put this down, it doesn't look quite as dark in my mind. Hence the idea why you really need to swatch. It really makes a difference. I mean, in my mind, this looks more of like a pink instead of a red. And yet the pencil pigment, on the pencil looks red. So definitely swatch out your colors. Do the blends. Some blends might be a little different than others. In this regard, I did find that my blending was a little bit different from the Lightfast. And part of this is also, I think, possibly the pigment of the color. You know, the Lightfast color, I tried to match them up as best I could, but I couldn't quite find the red I needed from the Lightfast to the Inktense. So when I swatched it out, I was like going, okay, I'm trying to find as close as I could in comparison. My cherry red in the Lightfast version and my fuchsia here were kind of in that same ballpark. At least I was kind of hoping it would. But when you put them down, they're slightly different. That's just how it is. You know, sometimes you're going to get lucky. And, you know, I kind of, some of these companies did it really nice. Like Derwent did do it where I did see some corresponding. Like if there was a sun yellow in the Lightfast, there was a sun yellow in the Inktense. Faber is absolutely that way on both sides of the coin. Their watercolor and their colored pencil polychromos, same names, just in different versions. Here it was like, I didn't quite find as much of that same corresponding all the way through. So you really need to swatch it out, figure out what you have. Okay, now on to the part that I love the most, Inktense using water. And right here, again, I'm just kind of putting down some of my pigment. I'm sorry, I love these pencils. They're one of my favorites to work with. And it's not necessarily the colored pencil part, it's applying the water part. You don't have to put a whole lot down. I would say when it comes to watercolor pencils, just in general, my favorites are Inktense and probably Faber's. But I love Inktense, and a lot of it is because you do get a very intense color. I'm using did you see that? Just a small amount of water. You don't need a ton to make this pigment move right across your shell. And when I apply more down of this red, look at how that color just comes out. Wow. You can really, I mean, you know, it really is up to how you handle your brush as to what it's going to look like in the end. So in this regard, because the egg is such a surface-oriented piece, you know, and what I mean is, in other words, it skates right on the surface. When you're putting this pigment down, it's right on the surface. So you can put down a little bit and make that color just boom, pop right off of that shell and just like grab you. And you can make it go really light to dark. I mean, the contrast, it almost, I keep thinking of my polymer clay. Sorry, can't be helped. But I just love that light to dark kind of feature. And my Inktense pencils really bring that out. Here I want to point out I used a little bit too much water, and it really became more of a wash in the end. I wanted to go more dark to light, and right there I applied just a little bit more pigment. You could kind of see it really brings in the color. If I really worked with this some more, your brush is key in this regard. So the more water you are going to apply, you're going to get that wash look. If you go with less water, you're going to get more of a dynamic kind of dark to light. So you get more dark color to light color. It really depends on how you use that brush and how you apply that water. So keep that in mind when you're going ahead and using these pencils on your eggshell. Okay, so here we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring in our Inktense pencils once again, and we're going to blend up the different colors. And I'm using a full half shell here on a chicken egg. And I'm going to go from like my blue here to my pink, I believe. And when I do that, we'll go ahead and blend these up, and you're really going to see that nice blend, and you'll get that purple kind of look in between. I just love these pencils and how they blend together in the different colors. So keep, these were better, or I should say, when I used my Prismacolor watercolor pencils, here's the thing, there's not as much of a variety in color, in palette, whereas with Inktense, you have like about, I think it's a 72 count that's out there right now. I'm not sure if they're expanding that. They might be. There's a lot more options, okay? So when you blend these up, you get a lot more different colors to choose from. Plus, even right here, I mean, you don't have to apply water. I like how this looks here. It really looked well. These two colors together just blended up really nice, even without the water. But let's go ahead and we're going to apply that water, and you'll see what I mean by just a smidgen of water. You don't need much. Like I said, I use more of a dry brush. Look at that. Woohoo, with one swipe. I love it. I probably got a little bit too much water there, but oh my word, it's just, look at that. It's like butter. You get that really nice into that pink, and really I think it really depends upon which way you're swiping your brush. Right here, I'm bringing more blue into it. If I swipe the other way, I'd be bringing more of that red into that blue. So it might change up how this actually looks in the end. Okay, so now I'm bringing in my red, and we're going to do the yellow bit, and this is another one of my favorite blends. I love the magenta or the fuchsia here to the yellow, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful blend. So when you guys go to do these blends, understand a lot of this blending, especially with the Inktense and you're using the water, a lot of it is going to depend upon how you use your brush. So when you come in, practice with your brush some, do some blends, and understand, okay, if I do push the water from one side, I'm going to be pushing more of the pigment of that particular color into another, and it's going to affect the other color more. This is why I would say, if I wanted to, I did go with the red into the yellow, so you're going to get a little bit more of where that yellow turns more to that orange. Remember that, see? right here, it kind of changed that yellow just slightly, not a ton, but it can change it. And the more you go the opposite way, you're going to get more of that yellow, right into that red. But again, you see how I kind of bring that in? I brought in some of that pink, and it does change up your yellow into a little bit more of that red kind of a feature. So play with your brush, see which way you really would enjoy it. I would say here though too, when I did do that segment, it was, I was using more of a dry brush, and I was getting more of kind of the original colors. If I really wanted to go in, I'd let that dry, and then I'd come back on the yellow, and you can pick up some of that red and you'll get more of the yellow showing through. Okay, so these are the 3 eggshell halves that I used in doing this segment. You can really see the difference between, of course, my pure colored pencil on the left hand, whereas when I go into the Inktense, you see the colored pencil, you get a little bit more of a rough style on top, but then when you bring that water in, oh my gosh, it's way more uniform. The pigment really goes into the pores of the shell. It makes a difference. And then when you get to that third half shell, you really see the blend kind of coming in and making a difference as well. It really goes into the pores of the shell, and you get a much smoother and nicer kind of look. Now, mind you, it's a little rough on that shell. I did not do a great blend. I'm still trying to figure this out a little bit too when it comes to my blending style with my brush. It's going to take a little bit of doing, but it is possible. That all being said, I really do love these pencils and how they work. Another reason in which I love using them is because I love the Lightfast ratings on these pencils. You know, when I went back and looked at my Prismacolors, I was really disappointed in the ratings that they received from the ASTM. And the Lightfast ones by Derwent and the Inktense all got really great ratings. I didn't have to think about which pencil I'm using and which one was going to fade faster. So this way it gave me that freedom to use what they had. And unless you're really a big color pencil freak and you want to collect everything, I mean, go ahead, do it if you want. But I found that it's just more. It's so much better if you could just tailor yourself down to, you know, the ones that you really truly love to work in. And I found the intense color of especially my Inktense pencils was phenomenal. Hands down, I just love them. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, please use this for study and reference. And if you liked my video, please like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. I'm always wondering what you're thinking. Otherwise, I'm sending out my biggest hugs to each of you, and I hope you have a fantastic day.